Welcome, Blood Brothers and Sanguine Sisters, to Deeply Discussing Dexter, Season 2, Episode 7, That Night Forest Grew. I'm your host, Dale Maxfield. I'm joined by Aaron Caldwell.
Hello.
Brooke Merritt.
Hello.
And Zach Rowland.
Hello.
And on today's episode, we get into even more trouble with Lila, some developments in the Bay Harbor Butcher case, a bit of a confrontation, to put it mildly, between Dexter and Doakes, and some developments with Deb and Agent Lundy. What'd you guys think of this episode overall?
I really enjoyed this episode. It really drives home that Lila's the worst, but we will get to that.
Oh yeah, she's the worst.
I mostly hated this episode. This is probably one of my least favorites so far.
Why so?
Probably because Lila is the worst. It's very Lila heavy, and she's so just the worst, and not in an enjoyable way. She's just the worst.
Now I don't remember. Were you a an always hater of Lila, or was that something that is new to you on rewatching it?
I didn't like Lila. I didn't hate her as much as I do on rewatch.
Okay.
I just hate anything to do with Lila right now, but particularly this episode. This episode just did not, no. Too much Lila and really nothing good about Lila.
I was 100% Lila all the way, and so this episode was great for me. Because I was just, I'm still there. I'm still rooting for her. I hope she makes it out okay. I don't remember what happens to her. So there's a lot of foreboding moments in this episode. So I hope she makes it out. I thought this episode was fine. Nothing to write home about, but good enough.
Yeah.
I knew from the opening scene that I was going to hate it and that Zach was going to love it.
I'm basically becoming the Masuka of this podcast.
We needed a Masuka. It's fine. Somebody has to be the Masuka. We're going to start a podcast to talk about you being Masuka.
Yeah. Thanks, Dale.
There's the Lila, Deb, and Dexter plotline, which is how the episode starts. We hear what sounds like Lila giving an art lesson, but it's really her directing Dexter on how to give her La Passion. Then Lila wants to reciprocate. Dexter's not really interested, but he finally agrees to do it in some kind of rough, murderous way, which Lila doesn't really know what she's asking for, but he tries to comply anyway. As Dexter is leaving, Lila breaks the landlord's light bulb, so she'll have to fix both of them, because her light bulb was out. Just more super fun manipulation times with Lila.
Yeah, and that's her best part of her personality is the way that she's able to get people to do things that she wants by causing chaos. So that's
I've
Quit defending Lila, Zach.
I feel
It's
like
horrible.
all these red flags, her running over things to steal it for art supplies, or breaking her landlord's light bulb. For somebody like Dexter who has such a secret life, this is going to attract a lot of attention his way. It really seems out of sorts for the character.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't want to sound like a misogynist or anything, but my favorite Lila is when she's not saying anything and not wearing any clothes.
That doesn't sound misogynistic at all. No,
that's the best.
I like women naked and quiet. There's nothing misogynistic about that.
That's her at her best, I think. So Deb wakes up and teases Dexter about how loud Deb is during sex. She asks what kind of noises Rita makes, and Dexter reveals that he and Rita broke up for good. What a conversation to have with your brother. And then Lila calls Dexter. She sold her hideous artwork and wants to celebrate. She talks her way into a busy restaurant with a phony 10th wedding anniversary story. Lila and Dexter talk about how well Dexter is doing. He hasn't felt the need to use in quite a while. She says they found the substitute. It's life. And the restaurant gives them a complimentary bottle of champagne. And despite both of them being in recovery, Lila says it's okay to use the champagne because she's horrible.
I mean, she's using her powers for good. You know.
For what good? What good are these powers being used for?
They couldn't get into the restaurant, you know. She's had that reservation booked for, you know, so long, and what a great story, 10-year anniversary. I mean, you know, I would be impressed. I feel like, hey, if she knows how to work it, you know, and she got free bubbly out of it, I don't know, that's a great time for me. I'm in.
But they're in recovery. Like, this seems counterproductive at its best.
And she started out as a sponsor. She's so good at that.
Hey, listen, if somebody gives me something for free, I don't care what it is, I'm probably gonna go for it, because one,
I'm gonna put it in my mouth.
Yeah, I'm gonna put it in my mouth.
Here's some meth, Zach.
I was gonna say, he's supposedly in recovery for heroin addiction, even though he's not really, but maybe he would become a heroin addict. Here you go, free heroin.
Yeah. Well, she's supposedly in recovery for meth addiction, and yet she has completely perfect teeth, so I'm not sure how that worked out either.
A perfect skin, perfect teeth.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think good meth.
I think they're both in people addiction. Like, they're just addicted to people, but in different ways. She likes to fuck them, he likes to kill them. Plain and simple.
Mm-hmm.
She's Marla Singer from Fight Club. she just trolls recovering groups.
That's awesome. Deb gets home and sees Lila walk out to the fridge topless. Deb says, "Who the fuck are you?" And Lila says, "Oh, pardon my tits." Deb says to Dexter, "Who's the skank?" She notices all the candles and says, "Are you trying to fuck her or set her on fire?" Deb is really disappointed in Dexter because it hasn't even been 24 hours since Deb found out that he and Rita broke up, and he's got the worst human being on the planet in bed with him.
Come on now. Pardon my tits is a great line. Like, to her credit, that's perfect. It perfectly encompassed her character. It was just everything that you ever needed to know.
Yeah,
right
it's very polite.
Yeah.
I mean, and also, is she the worst person to have in bed? Because I feel like the ice truck killer might have been the worst person to have in bed. I'm just saying, Deb, that's a double standard, you know?
Man, anything to defend Lila, even going after Deb for dating the ice truck killer. You have no mercy when it comes to defending this woman, who is horrible.
I don't know. This season is turning me around. I don't know who there's a dark passenger inside now, and you guys better be ready for the ride.
Zach is ruined.
Dexter and Lila go for a walk near Dexter's apartment. Dexter's worried about having lost his relationship with Rita. Lila asks if Rita and the kids were really helping him or if they were making him feel like a monster. Then Lila wants to have sex immediately, so Dexter breaks into an empty house. Lila comes out of the bathroom wearing a robe that she stole from the house that they broke into and says, "Look, I'm some old bitch."
Again, this seems like Dexter is just continues to make bad decisions because of this one person. Like, you work for the cops, man. Yeah, they're the worst cops in the history of ever. But you work for the cops and you're breaking into houses.
Yeah, Miami Metro would hire Lila at this point, like, in any capacity that she asked to be hired in, because that's how bad they are. And yeah, you're right about that. But yeah, I mean, I guess we could just call it an episode and just say Lila's the worst, because that's pretty much the crux of this whole thing.
Yeah, that would have been a better title.
She's definitely the worst person to take stabs at, I'll tell you that much. I was just trying to agree with you guys on something, but I can't.
I'm some old bitch.
She's the worst.
Lila's buyer gives her a check for $15,000 for her horrible art.
And tells her it's going to, like, set the world on fire.
Yeah. Which she proceeds to take literally and set it on fire. The artwork melts and improves quite a bit. Dexter is along for ice cream at Cody's, like, whatever, his presentation. But he has to leave when Lila calls him and tells him about the fire. There are firefighters on the scene when Dexter arrives at Lila's apartment. She tells him it was a blowtorch accident, and she begs him not to go anywhere. He consents, and the audience sees her smile in triumph. And he looks over her shoulder and notices that the light bulb has been replaced and reminds him of how manipulative she is.
Can we talk about the fact that the Miami Fire Department is obviously just as bad as Miami Metro? They're sitting there, they just put the fire out, they're just going to hang out, Dexter's just going to walk right in. They're just going to let people just hang out in this place that just burned up.
Yeah.
Yeah, also, who pays that much for art that's not, like, well-known art? Like, that's such a ridiculous amount of money. Like, I mean, the sculpture, I can't even remember what it was, or what it was made out of, because it was just so awful. I will say this, her art is awful. That's the one thing I will say about Lila.
Yeah, Dexter was calling it the cannibals. It was like a bunch of mannequins, like, eating each other, and they had a bunch of stuff, like, spot welded to them.
But her explanation of the meaning behind it, how we all eat each other, and God, it just made her even more of the worst, and she was already the worst.
I also got the impression that the buyer was like a gallery person who, for some reason, instead of showing her work, which is how galleries normally operate, was buying it to resell at her gallery. Like, that's just not how that's done. Like, it's not eBay. People don't buy cheap and sell high. They put something up at the gallery and they list it at a price, and if it doesn't sell, the artist gets it back, and that's the end of it. But they were taking that horrible piece of crap up to New York. You know, $15,000 plus shipping of that thing, and then they're going to ask somebody in New York to buy it. Like, I don't know. It didn't make any sense to me.
So you're saying that the people behind the show Dexter didn't do their research on the art dealing world either? I just don't know. I guess they're
that's
so good at research.
I guess that's how some people think it works, but
I didn't even question that scene outside of the amount of money. Like, I never even thought about it that way. I was just like, why? Why would anybody give her money for this?
Yeah.
Glue a few mannequins together and you've got art.
There you go.
So I was gonna say the writers were essentially like, okay guys, we're gonna lay in a lot of like fire stuff in this episode because there's gonna be a fire at the end. But does anybody know how art works? No? Cool. Well, we'll just write it in and hopefully nobody sees it.
Yeah.
They don't know how police works either, so I guess, you know.
So that brings us to Rita's mom, who's still hanging on. She rouses Rita out of bed, says that Rita's been moping around since she and Dexter broke up. Then Rita's mom is slave driving Aster to do schoolwork and Cody to work on his presentation on Saudi Arabia, in which he's doing Cody season 1 style in that scene.
In his defense, Grandma was really putting a lot of pressure on him. He had to act badly on that one.
Yeah. He's like doing the worst possible presentation. And then she sends the kids to bed as soon as Rita gets home.
Yeah, he's right up there with season 1 Cody at that point. I was like, oh, they're putting a lot of trust into this new Cody, and he's kind of letting us down now. Like
it was an acting choice. It was an acting choice because he does the same presentation later in the episode, and it's fine. They were trying to show that like he wasn't he wasn't confident in what he was doing, and he didn't really want to be doing it at that particular moment, and that mostly Rita's mom is like driving them crazy.
What grade is he supposed to be in?
Isn't he like 7, right?
So he'd be like a
Even now.
second grader, first grader, something like that.
Probably. That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Yeah, we weren't doing projects like that when I was his age. Like, I barely knew anything outside of Kansas at that point. So, good on them for making him look up what Saudi Arabia is, because I had no idea at that age that anything.
And it still wasn't good enough for Grandma.
No.
It was probably a child actor thing. He actually had to do a project on Saudi Arabia for his tutor, and they just worked it into the episode.
Cody calls Dexter and asks him if he can come to see the report on Saudi Arabia. He says he's scared of doing the presentation. Rita's mom takes the phone from him and hangs up when she finds out that it's Dexter. Then Rita gets home. Her mom has put the kids to bed early as a punishment for Cody calling Dexter. Rita tells her mom that she found out that she was actually fired from her teaching job over a year ago. And then Rita tells her to shut the fuck up, and she tells her mom to pack up and go home. She's not allowed to live with them anymore.
Yeah, go Rita.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Wasn't Cody hiding in a closet when he made that phone call?
He was he was either in a closet or in his bedroom with the door closed.
Because he was pretty close up to the door.
Yeah, he might have been sitting in his closet.
Yeah. But that should tell you everything you need to know about this woman. She needed to go, and I was so happy that Rita just let her have it.
It's a great scene with Julie Bench. I like seeing Rita tell her mom to fuck off. I've been looking forward to that.
But even then, her mom tried to ruin it by you tell me where to go. Just trying to take that power away. And I was like, no, push her out of the house. Just lay hands on her, man.
Right. Yeah, she tried to act like she had, it was a victory, that she had finally gotten Rita to come around, and...
If that's the sacrifice I have to make, I think is how she ended it. Gosh, she's... You know what? All right.
She's also
she
the worst.
Okay.
I was gonna say, can I defend her for a second?
You can't defend her. Now, I get why you're defending Lila. It's a little clouded, but there's no defense for Rita's mom.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I was a teacher for a short while, and you know what? Those kids do need a little discipline, okay? Because kids are just too rowdy these days. And I mean, her mom's got a point. That they just seem to be more focused. There's too many cartoons and things for them to enjoy. I'm just saying she had somewhat of a point.
Had Rita not come home when she did, the metal hangers were about to come out. It was about to go bad.
Yeah. Just take Rita's mom and Lila and Miami Metro and just burn them all down. They're all the worst, and the fire department would never figure out what happened.
Because they're also the worst.
Yes. Dexter does show up at Cody's presentation and gives him a pep talk. Cody does his lines much better now, as opposed to when he was with Rita's mom when he was doing his old Cody impression. Dexter screens a call from Lila. Rita casts a few smiles his way as he waves to Cody and makes faces at Aster. So, generally, yeah. I mean, this was a good showing for Rita's character actually standing up for herself. I know in earlier episodes before they had broken up, obviously, but when Dexter was around, we were talking about how we really wanted to see Dexter do something to get rid of her, like some kind of Paul-style manipulation on his part. But it's great that it's Rita herself who comes around and kicks her mom out of the house.
Yeah, I'd like seeing Rita stick up for herself and be assertive. And, I mean, in terms of character development, from season 1 to season 2, I really feel like hers is going in such a great direction. Like she's like handling her life, she's handling her children, and then finally she handles her mother situation. She handles the Dexter situation. She could use a little work with, but he's also not helping her with that situation at all. But I think all in all, like, her character development's been really super solid this season.
Yeah, and it's interesting too, from a storytelling perspective, we've mostly seen Rita through Dexter. It's almost always been exclusively her interactions with Dexter. Like, there was the one plot line where something was going on at her work, or she had a friend who needed help or whatever, that she was a little bit more... There were more scenes of her without him doing things. But I think they're finally starting to give Rita a little bit more screen time that isn't just Dexter's girlfriend. It's Rita. There's an actual character there instead of just a accessory for Dexter.
Yeah, she's definitely becoming a lot more three-dimensional, a lot more interesting, whereas first season it was very much, there wasn't a lot of layers going on. It was just sweet Rita. Even though little things would come up, it was still very sweet Rita, but we're seeing these different levels to the character now.
So let's talk about the very small amount of progress they make on the Bay Harbor Butcher this episode. At Miami Metro, Angel tells Dexter that they have received a manifesto from the Bay Harbor Butcher with victims they didn't know about before. It turns out that Dexter sent the manifesto to take control of the investigation. And this is one of the things I hate when a show or a movie or something does this, is Dexter, the character that we connect to the show through, knows something we don't know and has set something up that we don't know about, and he just sort of tells the audience, by the way, that was me. I'm the guy that sent the manifesto.
Well, from right, he didn't even say it right here. It's not till later when they talk about what's in the manifesto, and he's like, I don't know where I got half of this stuff while I was writing it. I think that's when they finally reveal that he wrote it.
It's immediately. He says it like in his head, like,
Yeah, he does.
I guess I missed that.
Well, it was really subtle the way he said it, it would be easy to miss if you weren't fully paying attention to the episode or whatever, so I can see how you would miss it. It was played very low-key, so I agree with you, Dale. I don't like the way they introed that either. No,
it would have... For me, it makes more sense for him as a character. Like, let's show how smart he is. Like, show him, sitting at his computer and copying and pasting a bunch of different books and things together, rather than, for like 10 seconds we're like, oh, Miami Metro has a lead. That's weird. Like, Dexter is the Bay Harbor Butcher. How'd they get a manifesto? Maybe it's a copycat or something. And he's immediately like, no, we just didn't tell you I made this.
Well, and this also presents another problem, more of a timeline sort. It's supposedly a pretty hefty manifesto. When did he have time to put this together?
Yeah.
Like, if Lila's not breathing down his neck, before that it was Rita, and Deb lives with him.
Yeah.
Did he write it at work? That would have been wonderful.
Yeah.
It was just lazy writing, and I'm sure it was a time issue as well. Of course, that always has to be taken into consideration, but it was just lazy.
It's probably printed on Miami Metro. It's got a watermark on it, and they just never piece it together.
He left the original inside the copy machine.
The boss finds it. Whose is this? That's mine. Okay, here you go. And then,
sorry.
That's it. Yeah. All right, but next time, okay, pal.
Trying to save money on the copier, okay? No more personal projects. Lundy holds a briefing about the manifesto. Angel has already read it cover to cover and has found a number of literary references in it. And then Angel is comparing notes on the manifesto with Dexter, and it turns out that the manifesto has no rhyme or reason. And then finally, Masuka, Angel, and the rest of the task force are competing for which profile the manifesto should fit, and they can't agree on the profile, and Lundy figures out that it's a ruse to make them chase their tails, and he writes law enforcement background on the whiteboard.
Because once again, Lundy is the only competent person that is in this building. I want to go back to a scene when Batista finds the literary references.
Yeah.
And they have that little Star Trek thing. It's from Star Trek. No, Mark Twain wasn't in Star Trek. He was in Next Generation. I'm like, oh my god.
Yeah, they thought they were being...
Yeah, true.
They thought they were being cute with the writing there.
Oh, man.
Because at first it sounded like they didn't know who Mark Twain was, but then it was... Which Star Trek series did Mark Twain appear in? Because he is in the Next Generation as like some kind of holodeck thing. It's like, no, it was actually Mark Twain who said this, not Mark Twain on the Next Generation that said this. So, yeah, good old Miami Metro just nailing it again.
So good.
But I love that Angel's already read the thing cover to cover. Because, he's got nothing going on in his life.
Oh, are we back to sad stuff?
Well, we haven't checked in with him in like 3 episodes now, so...
Apparently nothing has changed.
Yeah.
That's what they said. They were like, how do you know all these literary references? And he's just like, because I read. And like, oh yeah, don't be into the stereotype that he doesn't know how to read.
He's been doing nothing else since the last time we saw him. He's read like every book in the library.
Taking like classic literature classes to fill the time.
Trying to find a new girlfriend. But then he still talks about his ex.
Exactly, and Neil
and then
Diamond.
leaves with a hooker.
Yeah, and Neil Diamond. Yeah.
I feel like Batista reads as much as Mizuko watches porn.
Nobody has that amount of time.
How do they find time to work?
Well, they don't.
They don't. Yeah.
It's
Miami Metro. Okay.
There's a lot of bathroom breaks involved. Lots of reading on
Mizuko
one
would have
side.
no class to go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
He'd just stay at his desk.
Yeah. He can explain all that Gmail stuff. That's what he told Lundy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not making it up. So then there's the Dexter and Doakes plotline here. Doakes is at a crime scene where a woman sunbathing next to a pool was beaten to death. LaGuardia warns him about leaving Dexter alone. Camilla, the records lady, who I guess isn't always the records lady now, shows up and tells Dexter that Doakes came looking for the file that she destroyed. She's worried that if Doakes figures this out like Dexter did, that she'll be in trouble, and Dexter promises to protect her.
She had that wonderful cop, I'm just a year from retirement.
Well, and of course, her scene opens with her asking about donuts.
Yeah.
Camilla and
Did
her
she?
donuts.
I didn't notice that this time.
Yeah, because she said something, she said, you don't bring me donuts. And then he had one of the worst lines of the episode, I thought. He followed up with, you don't sing me love songs.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Song blue. Dexter lies to Doakes and tells him that the mist is consistent with bludgeoning versus something else. We hear Dexter answering truthfully in his mind and then saying the opposite to Doakes, so he's leading him into trouble. And then Doakes has been holding the suspect for too long. LaGuardia isn't so sure and asks to see the blood report when it's done. Dexter arrives and silently enjoys the task force poring over his manifesto. And then Dexter lies to LaGuardia that he told Doakes the suspect was innocent. He also planted his report on Doakes' desk. LaGuardia releases the suspect, Doakes figures out immediately that Dexter set him up, and LaGuardia thinks he's being paranoid. Dexter watches them have that conversation on the CCTV because they have it in the interrogation room.
Yeah, it's his. I mean, in terms of Dexter's ability to manipulate, we finally see him on the offensive, which is also interesting in comparison to Lila's ability to manipulate. Like, he's kind of always, I guess, been good at manipulation, but is he getting better because of her manipulation? Like, does anybody think that, like, there's a connection there at all?
Oh, yeah. I blame Lila.
I think it's less that he's getting better at it. He just has, because of her influence, he's more willing to take the risk than he was previously.
Yeah, I go along with that because he's pretty good at inventing forensic evidence to do things. We saw him invent forensic evidence at that like junkyard, and we saw him set up Paul successfully. So these are things that he can do, but he hasn't actually gone after Doakes this way or been aggressive towards Doakes this way yet.
And I do think that's a Lila influence. I do. And I also think him framing the stepfather, which granted he did, clear him eventually, but I think that's something pre-Lila Dexter never would have done. I feel like that's very out of his character line.
Yeah, she kind of gives him she kind of makes him more of a risk taker.
Good and bad.
Yeah, because that's what she's all about. Like, all of everything she does is risky, insane stuff. Driving around, stealing things for her artwork, and smashing light bulbs, and she does not think things through, but she still manages to get her way a lot. So,
well, and for him being a killer, because he is a killer, he did have a moral compass, and it's kind of compromised a little bit because of Lila's influence.
Mm-hmm.
As strange as it is to say, a serial killer has a moral compass, but he does. He has his moral compass, he has his code, and him setting up the stepfather is something that the old Dexter never would have done.
Sure.
But just like with him coming, straight to Rita and telling her that he slept with Lila.
Yeah. Yeah. He is honest. With people that he cares about, even if it doesn't go well for him, and he knows it's not going to go well for him. He knows, like, he knew that Rita wasn't going to stand up for that. The whole him sleeping with Lila thing. But this leads to the ultimate confrontation, Doakes versus Dexter. Doakes is hanging out in Dexter's lab. He says, "You're finally fighting back. It's about time." And Dexter says, "I'll always be ahead of you for one simple reason. I own you." Dexter headbutts Doakes, which causes Doakes to retaliate, but the retaliation happens publicly, and it makes it look like he attacks Dexter out of nowhere. Dexter acts scared and doesn't fight back, and LaGuardia puts Doakes on administrative leave and takes his badge, gun, and access card. So, score 1 for Dexter.
Great scene. I just love how Dexter is standing up to Doakes and he's just done. And just seeing him kind of, have enough and really go full manipulation with Doakes is awesome.
For him to go from realizing that Doakes was, like, invading his space and listening to the tape of him, of Harry and Laura Moser, where you think, where it, like, clearly looks like Doakes has the upper hand, to him attacking Doakes and then being smart enough to walk out and let Doakes just go crazy on him. It's, like, brilliant. Yeah,
I love it. That's such a genius cat and mouse kind of move on Dexter's part. Where Doakes thinks that Dexter's the mouse, but guess what? He's not.
Yeah.
What I also think is interesting is that I don't even know if Doakes still really knows what he's looking for. He's just looking for something, but he doesn't quite know what Dexter is or what Dexter's capable of. Like, obviously he knows he's good at hand-to-hand combat because they've had an interaction before from the previous season. He knows he's being secretive. like there's all these little moments, and tracking him down and everything, but like he never really truly knows what he's looking for, right?
Which is great, because that's why he has no chill, because he can't stand not knowing, and it's making him crazy because he's always been the top cop, and now he can't figure out this guy who he's the only one who has Dexter on his radar.
Do you think he would have done this at least so quickly if Camille hadn't come to him about Doakes looking into those old files? Because I really think this precipitated this scene completely. Yeah. Because it looked like he had kind of a longer con of making Doakes, without ruining Doakes' life, basically ruining his credibility, and then the talk with Camille kind of forced his hand and he reacted physically.
Yeah, I think his decision about when to complain, because he had been, it's been since the end of last season that Doakes has been following him. We saw that at the end of season 1, that Doakes is like parked outside his house because he knows there's something up with him, and he gets that opportunity to get Doakes into trouble or get mess with him in some way at that murder scene by lying to him. But then the whole escalating it to a physical confrontation and getting Doakes thrown out, yeah, I think that's completely about he's getting too close to finding out who Dexter's really, who his parents really were and what actually happened there, because then that could lead him to finding out that the ice truck killer was Dexter's brother, and that's sort of the ultimate secret that he doesn't want known.
Yeah, that's Dexter's secret. I mean, all of this is Dexter's secret. He likes having it as his own secret, and he feels like anybody, I think, other than the little bit he's told Lila, but I think he feels like his secrecy is under threat.
So Lundy is listening to some smooth jazz and scanning the murder board. Deb comes in to turn in some work she's finished. Lundy is trying to find the right music for this and decides that Chopin is perfect. Deb says she thrives on chaos. Lundy turns the music up. Deb says, well, this is good too. Dexter thinks he can rule out the man who found the body, but sees misting on the shirt. I don't know why I put that in there, but I did.
There it is.
Deb's boyfriend is trying to tell her a story, but she's listening to Chopin on her iPod and having some kind of sensual run, which is just hilarious. Like they're playing the piano music and you're looking at it just from her point of view, and she's just kind of like, just like running and loving her music. The task force takes a break for lunch. Lundy pulls out his cucumber and cream cheese sandwich, and Deb tells Lundy about the trouble she's having with Dexter and her boyfriend. Lundy immediately knows it's because she's been listening to Chopin.
Look, I love Lundy, but come on. Really? I know he's really perceptive. Great, he's a really impressive agent, but really?
When Chopin hits that sick bass line, it's just fights break out. You don't understand.
It's a little much.
Yeah, he says something like, that's one of the side effects of Chopin. This kind of thing can happen. Like, oh, brother. Deb's boyfriend wants to make the sex, but she's all hopped up on Chopin and wants to break up. And among the reasons that Deb gives, she repeats Lundy's truth comes from a peaceful place line.
Grown.
So she breaks up with a perfectly nice guy that she's going to see at the gym all the time, who's, I don't know, like age appropriate and writes children's books, and instead she's going to go for her uncle. Uncle Frank.
She does have some daddy issues, let's be real.
Country Kitchen Buffet and that AARP discount, man. It's important.
I view Lundy as sort of like the head of a cult, where it's like Deb was going in one direction, then she meets Osho. Let's just say from Osho, and she's all of a sudden she's like saying things that he's saying and listening to things that he's listening to and doing things that he's doing, and then she wants to sleep with him, and it's just like, oh yeah, he's a cult leader, like through and through. He's an FBI agent, but he could run his own cult. He could have all these young women just eating out of his hands, probably crackers, I guess, saltines or something, but
cucumber sandwiches.
Yeah, cucumber sandwiches.
He's got cream cheese and cucumbers.
I probably would join the Lundy cult. I admit, I'd be right in there for the Lundy cult.
Go get some land out in Oregon and buy up the town next door.
Look, this just makes sense to me. I don't know.
I know the OSHA thing. I watched that documentary not too long ago.
Yeah.
So then it ends up with Lundy and Deb meet with the press to negotiate how to publish the manifesto itself. Lundy and the press agree to remove the victims' names and push the story to page 3, which I don't know why they would agree to do that, but they do. I guess, again, it's Lundy's cult-like power. Maybe he played some Chopin for him in the room. Then Deb leads Lundy to a bench outside. It's a nice, quiet spot. It's 1 o'clock. Deb tells Lundy that when it gets quiet, she gets scared, but that she wants to practice while he's around. She feels that she can face anything when she's with him. Lundy starts to list all of his old man symptoms, and Deb kisses him.
And then he comes back with, and halitosis.
Yeah.
I couldn't watch the kissing scene. I had to look away. It was really uncomfortable and awkward. I couldn't watch it. I couldn't do it.
She had to get in there before the sandwich was going.
I just looked away. I don't know. I looked away. I don't know why. I just couldn't watch it.
Lundy is super convincing on everything. It goes back to that cult leader thing. You know that he was, when the camera cut to the scene outside, he finished talking to them with like this little like thing that spun, and they looked at it, and he was just like, you will move it to the third page, you will remove all these things, and he brainwashed them is what it was.
Yeah, I don't know. I think possibly the reason is that they're about 30 years apart, which is kind of a problem.
Yeah, it's just it's clearly daddy issues in this case.
Yeah, it's not Lila problem bad, but it's still a Lundy problem.
And I love Lundy, so this is so disappointing.
You know, I think if they asked anybody, Masuka would probably be into it. It's sort of a fetish for him.
Masuka will film it.
There's always an audience.
Yeah.
Masuka can sell it to his girlfriend from the strip club or wherever they were on that episode where he had the Masuka female version. So that is the episode. It was directed by Jerry Padaswa, who directed The Five Senses in 1999 and Fugitive Pieces in 2007. The Five Senses won 2 Genie Awards in 2000 for Best Director and Best Picture. For Dexter, this is his only episode, and after Dexter, he's directed several episodes of Game of Thrones, including an Emmy nomination for Outstanding Director in a Drama Series for one of those episodes. This was written by Daniel Cerrone, who used to write for Charmed. He was the executive producer on the first 2 seasons of Dexter, wrote 6 episodes total, including Popping Cherry and Circle of Friends back in season 1. He's the one that, when you see him in interviews from these first 2 seasons, he seems to know the most about the overall story. So after he leaves in season 2, some things change because he's not quite as involved anymore. And after Dexter, he wrote and executive produced on The Blacklist and Constantine. So what would be the best line of the episode?
My favorite line of the episode is when LaGuerta and Doakes are talking. She says something about him smiling, and he said, "Bullshit, I never smiled."
Yeah,
I just love that. Love that.
I'm going with "Pardon My Tits."
I somehow knew that was going to be your choice. Somehow I suspected. I struggled finding a best line, though. I didn't think there were any really good lines. I went with, "Are you trying to fuck her or set her on fire?" That was the best I could.
Yeah, that's pretty good. What about worst line of the episode?
Equally, another Lila line. Look, I'm some old bitch.
Yeah.
Yep, same.
Deb saying something comes from a peaceful place. That Lundy recitation.
While she's breaking up with the other guy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it's such a bad line.
And then performance of the episode / non-Michael C. Hall performance of the episode.
The art dealer for pretending that it was really worth that much money.
He sold that pretty good.
She sold that. Because that actor had to be thinking, "Are you kidding me?"
Yeah. She was so excited about that.
Yeah. That took some real talent.
I'm going to bring it full circle and say Lila's tits. Great performance this episode.
Lila's
they
tits.
they were very camera ready. They got a lot of exposure. I think that they were pretty much perfect in every shot. So
she really brought both
performance.
of her talents to bear in this episode.
They
Absolutely
were on point.
100%.
Oh, see what you did there.
Don't worry, I'll give my things.
All right, Masuka. Well, that is it for Season 2, Episode 7. Thanks for listening. Thanks, you guys, for doing the podcast with me. And we'll see you on the next Deeply Discussing Dexter.